What's up, YouTube? Dustin here with David,
Hello.
and yeah. Today's video topic is Windows to Linux. First, we're going to be discussing just a few reasons why we think you should switch to Linux. Um, I'm going to make it four, so it'll be an even number, so we could just split them up. So one of us will give one reason, and the other one can give another one. And so one of the reasons that I think you should switch to Linux is definitely the security. And by security, I mean like Linux is way more secure than Windows, and it doesn't really get any viruses. Um, it's not as prone to like breaking or like leaks or anything like that. Um, so that's the first reason.
Mine would have to be the choice. You get so much power in Linux. Like, if you don't like the way something is set up, then you can change it to your heart's content. You can just do anything. There's different desktops, different applications for different things, and you can just do so much as far as customization that it's ridiculous.
All right, so another reason would be well, I guess if you're cheap like me, Linux is pretty much all Linux distributions are completely free. Um, so that's one thing. You won't have to pay $200 to get your operating system disk or a recovery disk. It's free, um, which is
Just
great.
all you've got to do is just download it from the internet and burn it onto a CD or use a flash drive and
Or a floppy disk if you're really old school.
a floppy. Oh. Um,
Okay.
another another thing is the absolute power of it. Most servers in the world run Linux, and most embedded systems run Linux. There's a crazy amount. So like you probably don't realize this, but most of your stoplights run Linux.
Yeah.
In some form or fashion. So if you didn't have Linux, there'd be millions more traffic accidents than there are. Um, ATMs can run Linux.
There's a
Pretty much any.
giant list of basically anything that you, pretty much everything that you see that, like the like ATMs or like computers at Walmart, like the touchscreen ones that you can use to browse to their inventory or whatever. The ones that, like fast food restaurants, the cash registers run Linux. Your phone, Android phones run Linux.
Even though most people don't realize it because Google covers it up. Chromebooks.
They run. They happen to run Gentoo Linux. Um, uh, Tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of devices use Linux. Your radio in your car, like programmable speaker amplifiers. Pretty much anything
Some
you
TVs.
can program runs Linux. Most smart TVs run Linux. PlayStation 4s and PlayStation 3. Um,
Oh wow, even I didn't know that actually.
yeah, I think PlayStation 2s and PlayStation 1 runs Linux as well. I don't. I would be very very surprised if Xboxes run Linux, but I don't.
I would too.
I don't think they do. I know the
Considering
Wii.
it's a Microsoft product, I doubt it.
I'm pretty sure the Wii uses Linux. All right, so I'll just keep rambling on about everything that uses Linux. There's countless devices in the world that use Linux, and you're
Now I
probably
must
using it. You just don't know.
Yeah. And I must say that especially with ATMs, I would not trust a Windows ATM. If I could possibly avoid it, I'd be going to a Linux ATM.
Yeah.
Because
Um,
there are a lot of ATMs that run Windows, unfortunately. And might I add Windows XP, which was outdated in April.
So unfortunately, some people in the world do not know the information that Windows XP is, ran out in April, and then a good percentage of them are probably still using it, and they're probably still using it without a virus. without antivirus software, and probably not a firewall on the router either.
Good old days of viruses. Don't you remember those?
Yeah,
Like about 4 years ago, almost now. 3, 4 years ago now. Well, actually, 2 or 3. I'd say 3. 2011.
yeah. But
And really and truthfully, in Linux, you don't even need a firewall. Like I have run my system without having a firewall installed and or antivirus, and don't worry about it. I don't lose sleep at night over it.
yeah,
It's not the best practice, but I did it just to see if I could, and it worked.
yeah. I guess I'll go ahead and expand words.
Expand.
Yeah, expand. Sure. Upon the customization aspect of Linux, which is probably in one of my the top favorite things about Linux. Like in Linux, you could basically you could just do whatever you want with it. If you wanted to, I don't know, make your bar like if you wanted to have 4 bars on your screen around and make each of them like different colors with different type text, like any kind of text, you could create your own custom text and put it in there, or you could like add applications or anything that you could pretty much possibly think of that you could do. You could pretty much do it.
Could I make my wallpaper Justin Bieber and right click on his face to access my menu?
Um, Pretty sure it's already been done,
Yeah, I think it actually has.
but
I
we're
think
not
it's based off
going.
of Puppy, isn't it?
Yes, and we're not.
No, we're not going
We're
there.
not going to cover that.
What about Hannah Montana?
Uh, no, not that either.
No,
Um,
not gonna go there.
Well, on the other hand, in Windows, it's very convenient that you can change your desktop background and maybe change the color of your taskbar, and then you can use your taskbar by like moving it to the top of your screen, and
I didn't even think you could do that.
very carefully, by being very carefully, there's a thing you can edit in the registry that changes like your start logo. But basically, to hack Windows, I'm not going to say you have to be a genius, but to customize Windows, you pretty much have to put way too much work in it. 'Cause, trust me, I know when I was using Windows, I pretty much did it, even though I used programs to help me do it. But
Windows Blinds, I think it was called, wasn't it?
yes, and it was actually pretty horrible because it crashed every 10 minutes. Which is,
God.
I mean, it looked good for like 10 minutes and then it crashed.
Oh, bad.
Now, you can do some things in Windows, but they're just not like natively supported. It takes like hours or maybe days of hacking to get it to do something you want it to do, if it's even possible. And even then, if you customize it to get it to do what you want to do, you could probably you get your pantsuit off by Microsoft for moving an icon or something.
Right?
They're very protective about it.
And also, Mac is the same way. I mean, yeah, sure, I'd buy a Mac and use Mac OS X if the only thing I wanted to do was change my wallpaper.
Yeah, I've never
Because that's
really.
literally about all you can do.
I've never really had that much experience with Mac, but my first time using it wasn't exactly a great experience because for some reason the mouse sensitivity was way too low and it took me like 5 minutes to get the mouse all the way across the screen, and I don't know why.
Now, that seems to be a default thing because the first time that I used Mac, back in 2011, it was the exact same way, and I'm like, no, 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 I cannot deal with this. Because at that point, I had actually been using Linux for a little while and came from Linux, and I had, my mouse sensitivity was up just like it is on Windows, because on Windows and by default normally Linux, the mouse moves really fast. And I went to Mac, and I'm like, no, I can't deal with this. So that's the first thing I changed.
Yeah.
But no, literally in Mac, basically the only customizations that I know of from my limited use of it, I will say, is that you can change your icons on the dock at the very bottom, and you can change your wallpaper. That's about it as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I just love Linux because you can customize it any way you want to. I guess we can keep going about the security. There's not
Now
much
I want to.
you can really. I mean, there's tons of things you can say, but they don't really apply to Windows in the same way that they would apply to Linux. Like there's things that
So
you can do on Windows that are secure that make it even more secure, or um, it's hard to put it, but like things you can do on Linux that you can't do on Windows, but they're not
right.
related. I mean, there's really no way to make Windows more secure besides putting it behind like tons of firewalls and antivirus software. Then it's not secure. Then
The only way to completely secure Windows is to
not use it.
get a Windows disk. That's yeah, actually that's a very good idea too. What I was gonna say is get a Windows disk from Microsoft, and then make sure that none of your not the computer that you're gonna install it on is not connected to the internet. Install it and never ever ever connect it to the internet. That's about the only way to use Windows completely securely.
Yeah, well, I don't know how many people know, but as soon as you connect the computer to the internet and it's running something like Windows, as soon as you connect it to the internet, it immediately pretty much has some form of a virus.
I think that I read
Yeah,
something
it's like
somewhere that
I know what
said
you're talking about. It's when I think it's like within the first 40 minutes of you using it, it already has like a certain number of viruses.
yeah, I think yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. And with Linux, I mean, it's built differently, and it's built in such a way that since it's open source and the entire community can work on it, it gets security updates. So you can spend 3 4 days making a virus for Linux and release it to the public to try to get people's information or whatever. And with you spent 3 or 4 days developing it, and within 3 hours there's a fix for it.
Yeah, pretty much.
So you just wasted that time.
That was going to be the next thing that I was going to expand on. Linux is open source, meaning that that means anybody can edit the source, like the source code. So, say for example, what I'm using now, Fedora 20 LXDE. Say if you wanted to take it and customize the crap out of it, like move the panels around, change the themes, add all kinds of awesome stuff, or completely redo it, strip it back, and make it your own. And you could redistribute that. You could sell it if you really wanted to. But
Although, it, go ahead.
um, well, there's not that many people who actually sell Linux. Most of it's done just for the community. So,
Now there are some distros that what they'll do is they'll give a free version to anybody who wants it, and then if you decide to donate, instead of selling it to you, it's more of a donation. They'll give you a they'll give you a more beefed up version with a lot more features and things
yeah,
like that
yeah.
that you could get by yourself, but it would just take a long time to figure out how the heck they got all of them.
Yeah, which is kind of annoying at some point. Other those distributions, like OS4, that makes you
We
pay
won't
like
even go there.
makes you pay like $20 for free programs, which is you can get in like 2-3 minutes.
Oh, you haven't heard about the. Oh, have you not heard about that Black Lab Linux thing that they
I
want to?
I've heard the name, but I haven't heard about the thing. I probably don't want to hear about it because I'm not going to be participating in it. So
you need to hear about it though. I think it's going to make you laugh, and I think it'll make the audience laugh too. I was looking with one of my friends at the not OS4. Wow, the Black Lab Linux pricing scheme, and it actually was developed by the same person who developed OS4.
pretty
That's
sure
why I
it's
got
going to be
them
horrible.
mixed
Then.
up. For one license, $150.
What? That's horrible.
I am not even kidding you.
What?
Not even kidding you.
I understand say someone like building the distribution and then wanting to get money out of it because building a distribution is not easy and it takes months or maybe a year or more to build a decent working like stable distribution. But I can understand maybe like asking like 5 or 10, maybe even $15 to $20 for it. That's not a lot of money. $20 for an operating system versus 200 for Windows or any other thing. Um,
Now Mac is like, I think
Mac
either
isn't
Mac
that
is
bad. Mac
free
is
or
like
it's like $30.
it's like $30.
Yeah, the last thing I don't remember, but yeah, the last thing I heard it was like 30 to 25 $30. Not bad at all. The hardware is kind of high, but the actual system itself was like pretty cheap.
Yeah.
But I think I read something somewhere that says something to the effect of Linux users are willing to pay more for certain things. So, like for example, gaming. Um, there's not a lot of Linux games right now. I mean, it's getting better with Steam, but I read something somewhere that says that Linux users are more willing to pay a slightly higher price for a game that they can get on Linux versus having to dual boot Windows to play the same game. So, if,
I would
like the game
definitely
was being offered on Win,
I would definitely pay more for a game. Um,
so if the game was offered on Windows at $10, a Linux user would pay $15 if it worked on Linux.
exactly, because I mean, it makes sense to pay more when it because it's hard work to port them over, so it would make sense to have to pay more. I mean,
At least a little bit.
to somewhat of a
Like
degree,
ridiculous, but
to somewhat of a degree, it would make sense to have to pay more for the next games because I mean, there's people working hard to port them over, so you paid a little bit extra for people working to port them over.
And my thing is,
for the developers.
and my thing personally is, I would not mind paying just a slightly higher price for something that worked on a system that I prefer using. And this applies to even more than just games. I went into Windows. It's been a couple of months ago now, because I needed to do something, and it was just so frustrating. I'm like, oh my goodness, why do I have to do this? I can't remember what it was, but I had to do something for a class, and I just could not do it in Linux. I tried, and I went into Windows because I'm like, okay, fine, I'll just do it in Windows, and I'll get out of it as fast as I can. And when I booted it up, I noticed from the very first second it was slow, it was laggy, it just made me want to pull my hairs out one by one.
Yeah. Well, I think the last thing that we're gonna do before we wrap this up is another reason to be switching to Linux is because it's the performance aspects of it. It's it's insanely fast. Like it's way better than Windows and the performance aspects. I mean, these things run like Linux runs on supercomputers, servers, like it makes old hardware fast.
I remember using an old laptop. It was a Dell Latitude D505, and it had like a single core processor, and I think it had been upgraded to a gig of RAM. Windows XP was on this machine. It took like 4 minutes to boot.
Oh yeah,
and then
I
another
know the
2
one you're
minutes
talking about. But I didn't have that
and
exact
then
one, but mine had less RAM than that one.
oh bad. And it took like 4 minutes to boot up and 2 minutes to log in. So you had to wait 6 or 7 minutes before you could even get to a desktop, and then you had to wait for it to finish loading everything, which took another like 3 minutes. So you're looking at 10 minutes just to boot the machine. And I booted Linux, and must I say a pretty bloated version of Linux, because I used a distro called Ping iOS.
Oh,
And anybody who's ever used Linux knows that that is a distro that is armed to the teeth with like every piece of software you could ever want. Off of USB, I think it was like 1. I think it
Yeah.
was USB 1, or it might have been 2.
I don't know. I think those have USB 2, but it's a lower speed USB 2.
Yeah. So low speed USB 2, and it booted in like a minute.
Which is absolutely horrible. I know exactly because I had one. I was using one when I was in school or whatever, and the model that I had 256 megabytes of RAM, and a single core processor. And I had to build a custom distribution for it. I mean, I didn't have to, but I chose to. That way, I could get the most out of it because I was stuck using it at the time because I think my computer was broken, and I didn't have any other computers to use, so I had to use that. I can't remember what I used. I think it was I think it might have been a custom Debian, maybe.
Or
Either
Ubuntu. I think.
either it was custom
Weren't we?
Debian or no, I think it might have been Arch because I remember messing with the
Yeah.
kernel or something like that. But yeah, it definitely brings out performance in older machines, and it definitely is awesome for reviving old computers and making new ones better.
Yeah. I mean, I ran Linux on. I don't exactly know the model of it, but it was an Asus laptop, and I know that it was an Ultrabook, and it had like an i5, and I think it was like 4 or 6 gigs of RAM, and pretty good graphics. And I ran. It had Windows 8 on it by default, and I tried Windows 8, and it was still. I just didn't like it. It had Windows 8 on it, which was that's its first problem is it had Windows 8 on it. We're just not even going to go there. And
Yeah.
I booted up Linux on it. I booted up Ubuntu Linux, and that thing was amazingly fast. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, I guess we're gonna go ahead and start wrapping it up now. But first, before we start wrapping it up, I'll just give like a bit of advice for people who are thinking about switching to Linux, or I don't know, think they shouldn't switch to Linux. I think that you should give it a try, even though it might be hard, or even if you. Some people have really bad experiences with Linux. Like they try the wrong Linux distribution, and it doesn't work, and they just don't like it, and it scares them away from it. I think you should keep trying and find something that works for you. I know it's going to be somewhat difficult, but when you get used to it, and you start using it more, I'm pretty sure you'll love it.
I would agree with that. A new person coming to Linux really. I'm sorry. There's distros that are trying to fix this, but a new person that comes to Linux straight from Windows should not be using Arch at all. No.
Yeah, use like user friendly distros like Zorin OS or Ubuntu or Mint.
I'd even go as far as to say Debian.
Yeah,
Like certain versions, like
you can
maybe
use
GNOME or
the DVD versions of it. Yeah.
yeah. I would say like download the live Debian. Like I would go only as far as to say Debian. Debian stable at whatever it may be at the time.
Maybe
Not testing.
maybe even Fedora, but I think to use Fedora, you would kind of, at least in my experience, you would have to understand the package management better. Because they do offer like a software center type thing, but it's like a Yum extender as the name, but it's not exactly it's not very friendly for new users. It's
I would say no to Fedora because I actually tried it when I was still pretty new to Linux, and I had a really bad experience with it. Wait until you're slightly more advanced before you go Fedora.
yeah. Well,
That's my advice.
I think regardless of anything else, I think you should just give it a try, and just don't give up. Just keep trying if you're having issues with it, and see if you enjoy it. I mean, it's not for everyone. Not everyone's gonna fall in love with it. Some people are just stubborn and they want to stick to their Windows, or some people just think that Windows is better. And it's more power to them, because I mean, no operating system is perfect, regardless of how much people think so.
Yeah, indeed. And if at first you don't succeed, try again. That's the old saying, and it definitely applies. It really does apply.
Yeah, well,
I remember one time I reinstalled my system. I think it was like 5 or 6 times in 1 week because I was playing with stuff and broke it.
yeah,
So
well,
you will run into that.
yeah. I think the first time I did, I actually had the luck of not breaking anything the first install. Now, I wasn't I didn't really know too much about what I was doing, and unfortunately, like a week or so later, I broke something and had to reinstall. But that's about it. I mean, also another thing that we're gonna keep on rambling about. Not really. We're gonna end it in a second. But like Linux doesn't really break like Windows does. There's no boot screen to death, or just doesn't casually break. Like, I mean, you can update Linux and not have to turn your computer off. Like, you can leave your computer running for months and months and months and years. I mean, there's been servers like the DNS servers that pretty much run the internet. They've been running for like tons of years. Like,
I was just gonna say that the DNS servers that run the root DNS servers that run the DNS for the entire internet have been running for at least probably 14 years without being updated. Probably more.
Yeah. So
probably what maybe not without being updated, excuse me, but without being rebooted.
Yeah.
I mean, because if you take down one of those servers, a fourth of the 1/13 of the internet is going to go down.
Yeah.
Because there's 13 of them. So if you take one of them down, 1/13 of the internet is going to go down just immediately. And 1/13 of the internet, it may sound like a small number when you think about fractions, but that's really a lot of stuff. I mean, could you imagine not being able to go on Google or something?
Yeah, I use Google on like probably not even a daily basis, probably more like an hourly basis, but
exactly.
All right, well, I think we're gonna go ahead and try to wrap it up before we turn the video into like hours long. I think it's probably already past like the 20-minute mark anyway. But we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. So thanks for watching and listening, and yeah, we're gonna try to get out a few more videos. We'll probably make some more podcasts. I'm not exactly too sure about if I'm gonna turn it into a series or not. It may be like Tech Talk, and then a title of the topic. So like Tech Talk, Windows to Linux. But you definitely should see more of these in the future. So thanks for watching, and remember to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll also leave a link to David's channel in the description, and I'm not sure if it's going to be uploaded on both channels or not, but I know it will be uploaded on. Okay, it'll be uploaded to both channels. All right, so we're going to go ahead and end it here. So thanks for watching.